Silence is often misunderstood. Many people see it as a sign of submission, weakness, or even an inability to stand up for oneself. But in reality, silence, especially in the face of disrespect, is a profound act of strength and wisdom. It is not an admission of defeat, but a conscious decision to rise above a situation that does not serve our energy, self-worth, or inner peace. When someone disrespects us, the natural instinct is to react. We want to defend ourselves, correct their perception, or prove that we won't be walked over. However, the need to respond instantly is often driven by emotions, not clarity. And when we react emotionally, we rarely say what we truly mean, nor do we act in ways that reflect our highest self. In contrast, choosing silence allows us to pause, reflect, and respond not out of anger, but from a place of self-control. Choosing to stay quiet after being disrespected does not mean we are letting the behavior go unnoticed or giving someone permission to treat us poorly. Instead, it is about exercising emotional intelligence, recognizing that not every action demands a reaction, and understanding that our peace is far more valuable than winning a fleeting argument. There is power in restraint. When we refuse to engage in negativity, we send a silent but strong message. Our energy is too precious to be wasted on those who don't respect us. Silence, in these moments, is an assertion of self-respect rather than a lack of courage. It is an acknowledgement that our time and emotions are not to be dictated by the thoughtlessness of others. Many people believe that standing up for oneself requires loudness, confrontation, and immediate rebuttal. But true self-assurance does not need to be shouted. There is immense power in knowing when to speak and when to hold back. A person who is secure in their worth does not feel the need to argue every insult, respond to every slight, or prove themselves to people who do not see their value. Silence, in this way, is not passive, it is an active choice to disengage from the cycle of negativity. It is an internal knowing that respect is not demanded through retaliation but upheld through dignity. When we choose silence, we are not ignoring the disrespect, we are simply refusing to allow it to pull us into a space that does not align with who we are. One of the greatest gifts of silence is the space it creates for reflection. When we do not react immediately, we give ourselves time to assess the situation with clarity rather than anger. We can ask ourselves, is this worth my energy? Does this person's opinion truly matter to me? Will engaging in this conflict add value to my life, or will it simply drain me? More often than not, we realize that responding serves no meaningful purpose other than momentary satisfaction. And in many cases, silence itself is the answer. It allows us to protect our peace, keep our emotions in check, and respond if necessary when we are ready and composed, rather than in the heat of frustration. Another key aspect of silence is that it shifts the power dynamic. When someone disrespects us, they are often looking for a reaction. They want to provoke, to control our emotions, to feel superior by making us lose our composure. When we stay silent, we do not give them that satisfaction. Instead of feeding into their negativity, we show them that their words or actions have no power over us. This can be incredibly unsettling for those who thrive on conflict because they are expecting a fight, but what they receive instead is indifference. And indifference, when wielded correctly, is far more powerful than anger. It communicates that we are unshaken, that their words do not penetrate our sense of self-worth, and that we do not seek validation from those who refuse to offer us respect. This does not mean we should accept disrespect as a norm or never stand up for ourselves. There are times when a response is necessary. Self-worth is not something that should ever be up for debate, negotiation, or validation by others. It is an inherent truth, an unshakable foundation that belongs to each of us, independent of external opinions, achievements, or failures. Yet, so often, we find ourselves measuring our worth through the lens of how others see us. We let compliments inflate us and criticism deflate us. We internalize the judgments of people who barely know us, allowing their words to shape how we feel about ourselves. But the truth is, self-worth does not fluctuate based on someone's approval or rejection. It does not increase when people praise us or diminish when they dismiss us. It is not a currency that can be traded based on how well we perform or how much we are accepted. It simply exists whole, complete, and untouched by the perceptions of others. Many of us have been conditioned to seek validation From a young age, we are taught that our worth is tied to achievements, good behavior, and how well we fit into society's expectations. We learn to associate being liked with being valuable and to believe that if we are criticized, we must be lacking in some way. This creates an endless cycle of seeking approval, working harder, saying yes when we want to say no, dimming parts of ourselves to be more palatable. But the problem with seeking worth externally is that it makes us dependent on something we cannot control. No matter how much we try to please everyone, there will always be people who misunderstand us, undervalue us, or fail to see our worth. If we let their perspective dictate how we feel about ourselves, we will always be at their mercy, riding a constant emotional roller coaster of self-doubt and insecurity. True self-worth comes from within. It is the deep, unshaken knowing that we are enough as we are, regardless of what anyone else thinks. It is understanding that our value is not in our accomplishments, our appearance, or how much others admire us. It is in the fact that we exist. We do not have to earn it, prove it, or fight for it. It is already ours. And when we truly embrace this, we become free. Free from the fear of rejection. Free from the need to justify our worth. Free from the exhausting cycle of proving ourselves to people who may never appreciate us. This does not mean that we should ignore constructive criticism or stop striving for growth. Growth is essential, but growth should come from a place of wanting to better ourselves, not from a belief that we are not already enough. There is a difference between self-improvement and self-rejection. One comes from love, the other from fear. Self-worth means knowing that even as we work toward becoming the best version of ourselves, we are still worthy at every stage of that journey. We are still deserving of respect, kindness, and love, even when we make mistakes or fall short of expectations. When we internalize this truth, we stop seeking permission to exist fully. We stop shrinking ourselves to fit into spaces that do not honor us. We stop tolerating disrespect because we know that anyone who does not see our worth is not someone we need to convince. People's inability to recognize our value does not decrease it. A diamond remains a diamond, whether or not someone appreciates it. And in the same way, our worth remains intact, regardless of who acknowledges it. One of the biggest challenges in embracing self-worth is in learning the belief that we need validation. This is especially hard when we have been conditioned to seek it in relationships, careers, or achievements. But the reality is, external validation is fleeting. The people who applaud us today may criticize us tomorrow. The job that makes us feel accomplished today may not exist in a year. The relationships we pour ourselves into may not always last. If our sense of worth is tied to these things, we will always be on unstable ground. But when we build our self-worth from within, we see our courage is often associated with action, speaking up, standing our ground, fighting back. Society glorifies boldness, urging us to assert ourselves, defend our honor, and refuse to be silenced. But there is another kind of courage, one that is less visible yet equally, if not more, powerful. It is the courage of restraint, the ability to hold back when every impulse pushes us to react, to remain composed when emotions threaten to take over, and to choose wisdom over impulsivity. Restraint is not weakness. It is not about suppressing our voice or allowing ourselves to be disrespected. It is about understanding that power is not always in the response, but in the ability to decide when and how to respond. In moments of conflict or disrespect, the urge to react is strong. When we feel wronged, it is natural to want to correct the narrative, to make sure the other person understands our side, to prove a point. But not every battle is worth fighting, and not every situation requires our immediate response. Courage in restraint means recognizing that our energy is valuable and choosing to spend it wisely. It means understanding that reacting in anger or frustration often does more harm than good. Words spoken in the heat of the moment can wound deeply, escalate tensions, or leave us with regrets. True strength lies in the ability to pause, to sit with our emotions, and to respond only when we have clarity. Restraint is not silence out of fear. It is a conscious decision to rise above pettiness and conflict that serves no purpose. It is about knowing that not everything deserves our attention, and that responding to negativity only feeds it. There is great power in being able to walk away from an argument, not because we cannot fight, but because we know it is not worth it. This kind of self-discipline requires confidence. It demands that we trust in ourselves enough to know that our worth is not determined by proving a point or winning a confrontation. People who truly understand their power do not feel the need to react to every slight or disrespect. They recognize that not everything is personal, and even when it is, they refuse to let someone else's words dictate their peace. Restraint does not mean allowing injustice or disrespect to go unchecked. There are times when we must stand up for ourselves and assert our boundaries. But there is a difference between defending ourselves from a place of wisdom and reacting from a place of hurt. When we practice restraint, we give ourselves the space to choose a response that is aligned with our values rather than driven by temporary emotions. We learn to differentiate between what truly requires our voice and what is simply an invitation into unnecessary drama. It takes incredible courage to walk away when someone is trying to provoke us. It takes even more courage to remain silent when we know we could say something that would cut deeply. But choosing restraint is choosing our own peace over momentary satisfaction. It is choosing to prioritize long-term well-being over short-term victories. It is recognizing that some battles are won not by fighting, but by refusing to engage in a way that drains our energy. When we practice restraint, we gain clarity. We allow ourselves the opportunity to process our emotions rather than being controlled by them. We develop emotional intelligence, learning to respond rather than react. This ability does not come easily. It requires self-awareness, patience, and strength. But over time, it becomes a source of deep empowerment. Instead of feeling the need to react to everything that disturbs us, we learn to conserve our energy for what truly matters. Many people mistake restraint for weakness, believing that if we do not respond immediately, we are allowing others to walk over us. But the strongest people are not those who argue the loudest or react the fastest. They are the ones who understand that real power lies in self-control. Boundaries are one of the most powerful forms of self-respect, yet many people struggle to set them because they fear conflict, rejection, or being seen as unkind. In a world that often equates strength with confrontation, it can feel like boundaries are not enough, that we need to fight every battle, correct every misunderstanding, and prove our worth in every interaction. But true strength does not come from engaging in every argument or responding to every act of disrespect. It comes from knowing where our energy is best spent and choosing boundaries over battles. When we set boundaries, we are not avoiding conflict out of fear. We are making a conscious decision about what we will and will not allow in our lives. Boundaries are not about controlling others, they are about protecting ourselves. They are a declaration of what we need to feel safe, respected, and valued. Without them, we leave ourselves open to constant emotional exhaustion, allowing people to dictate our peace, push our limits, and drain our energy. The truth is, not every issue requires a battle. Not every negative comment needs a response. Not every disagreement needs to be won. Some things are best left alone, not because we are weak, but because we recognize that engaging will only pull us into unnecessary stress and distraction. One of the biggest misconceptions about boundaries is that they are a passive way of handling conflict. People assume that if we are not directly confronting someone, we are letting them get away with mistreating us. But boundaries are not passive, they are an active choice. They require us to be firm, clear, and consistent in how we allow others to treat us. Walking away from a situation that disrespects us is not the same as ignoring it. It is a powerful statement that says, I do not engage with what does not serve me. It is a way of taking control of our lives without the need for constant confrontation. Battles, on the other hand, are draining. They consume our time, our emotions, and our mental well-being. When we engage in unnecessary battles, we give others power over our peace. We allow their words, actions, and opinions to dictate our responses. The more we feel the need to prove ourselves, the more we become trapped in a cycle of conflict that rarely leads to resolution. There is a difference between standing up for ourselves and exhausting ourselves in the process. When we choose battles over boundaries, we often find ourselves fighting wars that never needed to be fought in the first place. Boundaries allow us to disengage from negativity without losing our strength. They remind us that we do not need to attend every argument we are invited to. We do not need to explain ourselves to people who are committed to misunderstanding us. We do not need to prove our worth to those who refuse to see it. The moment we stop seeking validation through conflict, we gain something much more valuable: inner peace. This does not mean we never stand up for ourselves. There will always be moments when we need to assert our boundaries directly, have difficult conversations, or take action against mistreatment. But not everything requires a fight. Some situations simply require distance. Some relationships are best handled by walking away. Some conflicts resolve themselves when we refuse to fuel them with our attention. It takes wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay silent, when to fight and when to step back. Boundaries teach us that we do not need to meet every act of disrespect with retaliation. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remove ourselves from situations that do not honor us. This does not make us weak, it makes us intentional. It means we recognize that our energy is precious and that not everyone deserves access to it. Choosing boundaries over battles is an act of self-care. It is a commitment to our well-being, a refusal to let others dictate our emotions, and a recognition that transformation is a far greater force than retaliation. Yet the world often conditions us to believe that the only way to respond to hurt, betrayal, or injustice is to fight back. When someone disrespects us, our first instinct is to react, to prove them wrong, to make them feel the way they made us feel, to reclaim our sense of power through confrontation. Retaliation feels justified in the moment because it gives us a temporary sense of control, but in reality, it keeps us locked in the same energy that hurt us in the first place. True power does not come from matching negativity with negativity, it comes from rising above it. It comes from transformation, choosing to use our pain, disappointments, and challenges as fuel for growth rather than weapons for revenge. Retaliation keeps us focused on the past, replaying what was done to us and looking for ways to even the score. It traps us in cycles of conflict, bitterness, and emotional exhaustion. We think that by getting back at someone, we will find closure, but revenge does not heal. If anything, it deepens the wound. It ties us to the very people and situations we wish to move on from. Transformation, on the other hand, shifts the focus inward. It asks, how can I use this experience to become stronger, wiser, and more at peace? Instead of wasting energy on proving a point, transformation redirects that energy toward self-improvement, healing, and personal evolution. It turns pain into purpose and disappointment into motivation. It takes more strength to transform pain into growth than it does to retaliate. Anyone can react impulsively, but not everyone can take a step back, process their emotions, and choose a response that aligns with their highest self. It is easy to let anger dictate our actions, but it takes true courage to let go, move forward, and focus on becoming better rather than proving a point. Transformation is not about ignoring injustice or pretending that pain does not exist. It is about deciding what we do with that pain. Do we let it consume us and turn us into the very thing we resented, or do we use it to fuel our evolution? Choosing transformation over retaliation does not mean we accept mistreatment or stay silent when boundaries are crossed. It means we become intentional about how we respond. Not every situation deserves our reaction, and not every conflict is worth engaging in. Some people seek to provoke us, to pull us into their chaos, to bring us down to their level. The greatest act of power is refusing to give them that satisfaction. Instead of reacting, we redirect. Instead of getting caught in petty battles, we channel our energy into growth, self-respect, and creating a life that is beyond the reach of negativity. One of the most powerful ways to transform pain is through success, not in the sense of proving others wrong, but in the sense of proving ourselves right. When we take the energy that could have been spent on retaliation and invest it in ourselves, we create something far greater than revenge. We create personal freedom. We build confidence that is not dependent on outside validation. We shift our focus from what was done to us to what we can do for ourselves. Transformation is not about ignoring injustice, it is about rising above it. It is about refusing to let external circumstances dictate our internal state. It is about choosing growth over grudges, resilience over resentment, and peace over proving a point. Many people believe that if they do not retaliate, they are letting others win. But the truth is, the moment we step away from negativity and choose to focus on our own evolution, we have already won. We free ourselves from the emotional weight of revenge. We take back our power by refusing to let external situations control our happiness. We move forward with clarity, knowing that our energy is too valuable to be wasted on people and situations that do not contribute to our growth.